Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Mail Right Real Estate Marketing Podcast, where all we do is talk about real estate marketing once a week, every week. Today, we are blessed to have Dale with us. Dale's a world-class, I would call him a lead optimization expert, but basically he specializes in helping you get better results from your lead flow. He works with ISAs. I would imagine, Dale, that you probably also work with a lot of the systems that are out there. You probably have to integrate your services into their services and things like that. But I'll let you explain even further than I have just done what you do and who you are.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I'm the founder of Smart Inside Sales, the company, and we focus on scripting, dialogue, sales training for agents and ISAs. So the spoken word, right? Written word, spoken word, how you're interacting with these leads, from when you receive a lead to running into objections with them, to following up with them, to set appointments and further the relationship with them. So we handle that on the sales end, right? With the agents and ISAs. We also consult with team leaders or brokers on growing their companies, growing their sales departments, improving their recruiting processes to find talent and to nurture talent within their teams. So primarily from a sales aspect. I'm not an expert in CRMs. We generally work with clients that have all different types of CRM, but what we are is that we are lead conversion specialists when it comes to either written messaging or spoken words in terms of sales for people. So that dovetails nicely into what you guys do. I understand you guys are specialists at finding those leads online to supply to your clients.
Correct. I will comment on more on that in a moment, if I can somehow do so without turning it into an interrogation of some kind. John, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to, so John, my co-host, is doing some really cool things, really exciting things inside the world of WordPress as it relates to real estate marketing and real estate lead generation. He's in the process, it's behind the magic Oz curtain right now of redesigning and redeveloping a service. I'm very anxious as his co-host to announce it to the world. But he's doing a lot of cool things. But John, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience?
Well, it's nothing hidden. You know, we had a focus. We were kind of, we felt we were a better option than our main target, which was bold leads. But as we got involved with clients, they asked us to do more things than just bold leads. You know, they seem to like what we had to offer. So we're offering a more kind of larger package that still has Facebook. But I would say the main thing is that I'm from the world of WordPress and web development. So we provide a really great website solution that has all these extra bits to it. So if that sounds interesting, give me a call. So back over to you, Robert.
Lovely. Well, you, Dale, are directly in a wheelhouse that I left to actually be a real estate digital lead generation specialist, but I came from the ISA world. As a matter of fact, I worked in that world for 20 plus years, running call centers for Sprint, MCI, AT&T, and many other huge brands over the 20 years I was doing it. So talking about scripting and how you speak, intonation, uptones, downtones, mirroring, all those things are things that basically have been the linchpins of my career back in the day. So I'm really excited to get into this conversation. Before we do that, I'm curious to know if I asked you, who is it that you really like to talk to about what you do? Because it doesn't sound like each and every single real estate agent or broker would be the person that you'd speak to. Who would you say that you were aiming, like thinking that a conversation with you would be most useful for?
Generally speaking, our best client is typically going to be a team that has, say, maybe 2 agents at the small end, up to at most, say, 20 to 30 agents. So that window of team is generally our best clients. And we have technologies and services and training that really supports them well. If you're a brand new, like, individual agent just trying to get yourself established and you don't really have any leads to work, or If you have a few leads that you're working, there's tons of free resources that you get from your brokerage that you can find on YouTube. There's trainers out there who make it part of their pitch that they do free training. There's tons of resources out there for that. So we're kind of I would say the middle of the road between people being sort of a giant mega team, but trying to get their agents and ISAs, either they want to add an ISA, which we absolutely help them do, or they want to grow from a single to a team of ISAs, or they just want to be able to scale their real estate team and have more success with converting the types of leads that you guys provide them. That's what we help them do.
Got you. And if you were to say, like, if I was to say something like Hatch Consulting to you, where would you put yourself in that universe of sister competitor providers doing some conversion monster? I could go on and on. There's lots of, where do you put yourself in the realm of there's all these companies that talk about, call center services for real estate. Can you position yourself in that universe for us?
I'll make a distinction for you. So Conversion Monster is a done for you company. Okay. So they have ISAs that they hire and train, and they say, we'll call your leads for you. Versus Hatch Consulting, which I'm personally friends with Robbie Trefetheren, who is Hatch, essentially Eric Hatch's name, but Robbie really runs it. And so Robbie and I have actually collaborated, and Hatch Consulting is very similar to what we do. Whereas Robbie's much more a specialist in the written text messaging and system optimizations. Whereas I am much more of a specialist in the spoken word and the sales techniques that a salesperson has to use when actually talking to a lead. And in fact, I use some of Robbie's messaging in terms of text messages automation or email automation. So there's a blending there. But I would say that in terms of Hatch Consulting and us, very similar. It's just we have some different strengths. Whereas Conversion Monster is a done for you company, which is a different thing all to its own.
Got you. Excellent. Well, John, I've got my couple of burning questions answered. Do you have something for Dale? Because you know me with telemarketing and all things related to this universe, I could go all day.
I'm looking forward to it. Just a quick question, Dale. Recently, has anything come on your radar that you think consistently agents do wrong? That's been a consistent pattern over the years that you've been doing this, that's recently come back on your radar?
Yeah, I would say that the one reason that we're still in business and not put out by all the automation is that at some point you still have to have a human interaction with another human in order to
terrible, isn't it? Shocking.
It's the reason I don't work at the local grocery store. It's the reason I'm taking sales training, right? And the other thing is
that it's going to be shocking news for a lot of agents. You actually got to fucking talk to your clients.
Wow. For once, I'm not the one turning this into a rated R show. Good job.
But there we go.
Sorry, go ahead.
But that's a reality. So you still have to have that human interaction somewhere. Yes, automation is fantastic. It's great to leverage. It really does provide an amazing service for people, and it helps them convert more. But you still have to have that personal interaction, which means that there's still either zero training having been given to a salesperson or shitty training having been given to a salesperson. And so that's another reason why we're successful, is because we have a higher level of training quality that we provide to salespeople, which is why I say, for brand new agents that come to us, if you're individual, that's why I'm saying team is better for us, because generally someone has already provided you some training. You have some leads to talk to. You don't come to us to figure out how to get leads. You come to us because you have leads and you want to improve your level of conversion with those leads. And so that's what we specialize in doing. And so consistent things I see, which keeps our doors rotating, is being able to take a salesperson from basic scripting dialogue skills that the Mike Ferries out there are giving people, or that the KWs of the world are giving people, and saying, okay, great, learn that stuff. You have a good foundation. Now come over here and let me teach you some ninja tricks, right? I'm gonna take you from green belt to black belt, if you will. That's a consistent thing that we see.
What a good question, John. I'm super impressed. So,
well, it wasn't one of my. I'm trying to improve Robert. It's not one of my rambling 5-part monster questions that the poor guest, takes them a half hour to answer every bloody point. I tried to have it focused, didn't I?
Well, I have an interesting comment for everybody that's listening to the show. This is kind of like a pop quiz for our audience, which is I found this to be really cool, Dale, that that when you Google conversion university, I'm curious to know if you knew that you come up number 1 for that term.
I did not know that. That is I'm going to take full credit for that, although I had no idea.
So if anybody's listening to the show and there's always these points with our guests that we say, hey, go ahead and promote yourselves. I always find it to be very credible and very cool if a guest has a good enough digital presence that you can say, you take this thing that's related to what the guest does and you Google it and you will find the guest. In this particular case, you can obviously Google Dale's name. His last name is Archdekin. Is that right? Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay, so his last name is Archdekin, which is obviously a really recognizable name. But if you're like me and you kind of remember people based on what they do instead of their names, you could just do Conversion University, which I think is pretty straightforward.
You saw me wipe the bead of sweat. Woo!
So Dale, when you're like training, so here, let me just make sure I understand this right. If I have an ISA, I'm a real estate agent, I've got somebody that's doing calls for me, but I feel like, let's say I'm giving that person 100 leads to call every month and I'm using Sync just to say some system, right? And we all know those digital leads need to be called and they have to be dug through because about 80 to 90% of them are going to be a waste of time. But we all know that a good person on the phone is going to get a better result with the same 100 leads than somebody who's not. Like, am I on track so far, kind of going down a rabbit hole that you're used to going down?
Yeah, I would say there's only one piece I disagree with, and that I don't agree that 80 to 90% are a waste of time. I would say that 80 to 90% just aren't ready for you yet. And getting rid of duplicates, right? Obviously, because these digital leads are getting resold and resold and resold because I'm one person and I register in a lot of different places or on a lot of different social media. But I would say, and I'm not selling leads. Don't get me wrong. I would say that a lot of them just aren't ready yet. It depends on where you're fishing. The farther up the stream you fish, the longer it's going to take for that fish to get to you. So that's the only part that I don't quite agree with.
Okay.
Funny enough, Robert, a lot of women say that to me. I'm just not ready for you, John.
Oh my God, I love you, brother. You're on one today. Poor Dale. All right, so we've got the fish, the stream, the 100, and let's just say that let's use Dale's language and say that of these 100 people, there's going to be 80 that aren't ready for you yet, and maybe 20 that are somewhere in the realm of being ready. Is that a more language that you would more feel aligned with?
Yeah, and the more skilled you are, the faster either you can accelerate them or you can make a better relationship, and so that they'll stick with you until they are ready. So I definitely agree with that.
Okay. All right. So lovely. So I have somebody calling those 100 people, and if I wanted that somebody to do exactly what you just said, which is develop a better relationship, be more closely connected to you, probably not get connected to the other places and people that they've registered, right? Because you said that earlier in your statement. So this one human has maybe registered with 5 different services, and they're probably getting calls from those 5 services. So you want them to develop a relationship with your team. Is that you on board with that? Okay. You would be the guy that I would approach and say, I don't necessarily know how to get this result. And I don't, or even if I did, maybe I just don't want to deal with it myself. Because if I'm a broker and I have 15, 20 agents, I probably don't have time to do it if we're honest about it. So that would be when I would contact you though. I'd take this 1 or 2 or 3 people that I have calling 1 to 100 or 200 or 300 leads, and I'd hire you to coach those people. Am I understanding this correctly?
Yes. So we have a training platform for that existing ISA. And then I'm going to make a further argument that 50% of the ISA's success is going to rely on the training and skill set of the agents that they're giving these appointments to, or that they're sending the leads to after they've warmed them up or nurtured them. So I love to get the whole team involved in the training so we can improve their skills too. And now, if we're being honest with each other, Robert, can I be honest with you and tell you the dirty secret?
No, lie to me. No, of course. Go ahead. Go for it.
Is that what Jonathan says to ladies too? Is that the
I'm so easy to read, Dale, and
unfortunately, 90% of the time, if a client's first engagement with us is after they've already hired an ISA, I will say generally 70 to 80% of the time they've made the wrong hire, and they come to us and they're like, hey, I went and did this thing and I want you to train them. In the back of my head, I'm always like, oh man, what you just said was, I want to spend additional money on training and resources for this person I probably shouldn't have hired in the first place. And then we have a moral dilemma as to whether we say, great, pay your money over here, let us train them, or we say, let's first test that person to see if we agree that you should have made that hire in the first place before we take your money to train them. I really prefer that people come to us either before they make the hire or after they've already failed several times and wasted $5,000 or $10,000 trying to implement an ISA department, and then they're really ready to listen to what you tell them as to how hard it is to find a good fit for this role and the steps you have to take to make it happen. So that's kind of like how the sausage gets made behind the curtain a little bit.
Yeah, we need to go for a break, Robert.
You got it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're in the middle of what I personally find to be a deeply fascinating conversation with Dale, and we're talking about one of my favorite topics that I never get to talk about that relates to 20 years of my life, which is call optimization. How do you optimize a conversation with human beings, and how do you do that via the phone? And I'm sure some of the same tactics can be used via Zoom meetings these days. But anyway, we're going to be right back, and we're going to dive even deeper with Dale and follow up on some of his comments. So stay tuned. Do not turn off that podcast. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to episode number 302. We are so very lucky to have Dale Archdekin with us today, and we are talking about ISAs and optimizing conversations with ISAs. And prior to the break, Dale said something that I wanted to comment on, which was he was saying that he prefers to be contacted after either, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, Dale, that you said, hey, I like to be contacted after somebody has failed a few times to make a hire or before they hire anyone at all. Because it's very difficult to train a resource that is not trainable. So a lot of people don't know this, but I have probably hired and trained over 10,000 ISAs in my career, and it's literally been a number it's that big. But you might ask, that sounds like an unrealistic number. How in the world can you really hire and train that many people? And the answer is that telesales or telemarketing or talking to people over the phone is a very brutal business. It requires a very particular personality that can take a lot of rejection in stride and still maintain what hopefully is a really amazing attitude. It's very hard to find people who are suited well to that work. And when you do find them, it is really important that you invest in those people. I would agree with what Dale said, because you want them to have to deal with the emotionality and the what they have to take in as part of this career choice for themselves. You want them to have the tools to, one, get the best result because they'll feel better about what they do. And number two, you have to give them the tools psychologically to take in stride the rejection that they do get, which a great way to do it is what Dale just said, which is it's really oftentimes not rejection. It might just be a matter of bad timing. So a no isn't really a no. It's just a no right now. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, a lot of times it is.
How do you go about, so let's just say, for instance, Dale, like I am taking your advice. I have not hired an ISA, but I want to. I have the budget, I have the will, I know that I need it. I have a system someplace out there that's generating me, let's just call it a few hundred leads a month. And I know they need to be called, but so far they haven't been. They've been getting follow-up boss and maybe Ylopo text messages, which is actually structurally. So they're getting some type of automated text messaging being sent out to them. But now I want an ISA. I've heard from 5,000 people that the best way to do this is to use an actual human being. what do you do from that point forward? Like, how do you find the person? What do you, or do you recommend that they find the person in a certain way? How do you handle that thing, that situation past that point?
So I'm going to tell you how we go about it. And this is, so we obviously have a training course, consulting course where we help people do this for their in-house ISA. But I'm just going to tell you, it's not a lot of magic. It's a lot of repetition. I'll give you our basic format for doing this, and people can do this here. And if they want us to help them, great. But if not, they can do it themselves. And we generally recommend for most situations that hiring an in-house ISA and training them. And I'm going to say some very risque things here, that we recommend that they be either US based or English as a first language, native English speakers, to be working these kind of leads. If you want to use a virtual in another country who's not English as a first language, I've only seen success there as a basic lead scrubber, meaning, is this accurate information? Do you have a heartbeat? And that's about the extent of any kind of success I've seen out of that service. So whether you do it yourself or you hire one of those services, I don't recommend overseas types of orientation. So we recommend in-house native English speaker, ideally in your own region, because they're going to have a little bit more understanding about how to approach things. So I'm in Philadelphia. I can't take a Philadelphia-based person and have them talk to somebody in Georgia and not sound like a jerk, right? It's just not going to work very well. So likewise, somebody from down there trying to talk to leads up here is going to get blown off the phone. So those are a first couple of the recommendations that I have. And then it's pretty simple. You craft a really good ad. We just use Indeed, right? We run it all on Indeed. We boost, we pay to sponsor it. You want to get somewhere between 50 to 100 resumes per week. We don't read the resumes. I don't give two shits about a resume. A resume has never been able to accurately predict whether somebody's going to be a good, productive, profitable ISA or not. And the only people who can come up with a good resume are good liars. That doesn't make them good ISAs. So I don't read the resumes at all. And instead, we receive the resumes and then we require them to do either a voice recording or a video recording of themselves, right? We send them an email that says, hey.
What do you think you'll make of my one if I did one, Dale?
Oh, well, yours? That would be, I would definitely hire you as an ISA somewhere in Britain if I could place the accent. That would work fantastically.
You can come, you said the right thing. You can come back on the show, Dale. Right.
Like he'd want to. Go ahead, Dale.
They love accents. Maybe it would increase the conversion. I don't know. But anyway, so shoot a quick video of yourself. Who are you? Why do you think you're the best fit for this role? What special talents or ability do you have? If they cannot figure out how to get you a video and they can't articulate themselves and their language sucks, they don't go any farther. But let's say they pass that. We do that screening, right? Then we take a modified Mike Ferry script, a FSBO script, one of the old school scripts that we've modified, and we send it to them and we say, hey, you're going to do a role play with us. And they say, okay, this is after we tell them what the role is, what they're going to be paid, how they get paid, how they get commission, what they have to do, that they have to make all these calls, 6 hours of, general prospecting a day. And if they're still with it, we say, great, take that script I gave you. And we say two things to them. We say, your goal, you're going to play the role of an agent. I'm going to play the role of a for sale by owner. And we're doing this with people with no experience, right? None, no real estate experience. Doesn't matter. We're testing their sales skills. We say, first, your goal is to set an appointment with me. Second, the only way you fail this exercise is if you let me off the phone before you ask all your questions. And they say, okay. And then we proceed to object to them and try to get off the phone and see what they do, right?
Right.
And by going through that, it shows us what level of sales skill and ability and experience they have. And somebody who breaks role play fails. Somebody who lets me off the phone without at least closing me once fails. If you close me twice, bonus points. If you get stuck in the script and I object to you, I say, hey, Jonathan, I got to go. My kids are playing in the backyard. And you're like, oh, man, can I ask you a few more questions? And you get stuck and you don't move forward. You don't quite have the sales ability or the experience probably for this role. So it's a really good filter to weed out a whole lot of people that aren't going to be able to do this. Then
I'm getting worried that I won't pass that.
I think we should do it. We should do it, and we should do it live. We'll do another session where we make Jonathan do
Yeah,
this.
that might be interesting, won't it? I'm sure the listeners would actually love that. Actually, be on the spot. Actually, I'm sure Robert will absolutely love it.
That's
There
sure.
we go.
Then we move them. If they pass that, we move them to a calling session where we teach them a script for 30 minutes, 40 minutes. We give them a pile of either old leads or circle prospect stuff on a recorded line, and we say, have at it. You have 2 hours to speak to these people. Your goal is to set appointments. And then we just listen to what happens, right? And what kind of attitude they have, what their energy is. Are they able to do it? Can they actually can they set some appointments? Even if they're crap, I don't care what the quality of the appointment is at that point. Can you set an appointment if I tell you to? That's kind of the screening stuff that we put people through. And that raises people's chances. If they have, let's say, a 5 to 10% chance of getting the right hire without using those techniques, I would say that generally it raises it about 5 times. So you're at about 50-50. Now you're at about a 50-50 shot that whoever you hire is going to be able to do this job and going to stay with you and be profitable.
And that number, ladies and gentlemen, is about 40 or 50%. So the numbers when I hired for call centers was maybe 1 in 10 to 1 in 20 people would stick. And this is after they went through an interview process. So we would have them submit a resume, come into the office, they talk to the hiring manager, they get past that person. And then we then put them through like usually a few days worth of training. There's an old saying that I always adhered to when I was running call centers, which was hire them masses, teach them in classes, and kick them in the ass. And that used to really, that did the trick. But even with all of that, you're talking about 1 in 20, 1 in 15, where they would last more than the first 30 days. Like that's literally what the number is. And in that industry, they just don't show up again. Like they'll talk to HR. They'll send them a message saying, may I have my check? They won't even bother talking to the floor soups or the telemarketing manager. They just disappear. You just don't see their seat filled. So you're always hiring lots of people to fill that funnel. So what I hear you saying to me, what I've just heard is that through this process, which I agree with, if you're running through the process as you've just outlined it for us here on this podcast, I agree. That should do the trick. If you're doing all of that, if you're sitting there and listening to them do 2 hours of calls and you're listening to them set some kind of appointment, by that time, you'll know how good their conversational skills. The only thing I think would be left is, do they have the will and the diligence to do it 6 hours a day, every day? Is that a fair statement?
Robert, we need to wrap up the podcast, but hopefully Dale can stay on for some bonus content, which people will be able to watch on the Mailright YouTube
If you twist
channel.
my arm, I'll stay and talk like I know what I'm saying. I love doing that.
Yeah, thank you, Dale. 300 episodes and I'm still doing that, Dale. So I understand it completely.
Nice.
But before we go, that last question, would you agree with what I was saying? And then we're going to go to the YouTube bonus content if you're willing to stay with us 2 more minutes.
Yes, absolutely. Totally agree with what you just said. And I want to make another point is that you said in that big corporate environment, we did cattle calls, got them in, went through this process. The reason we developed this very, very tight, like you punch them in the face and make them do the work before I hire you is because these teams they don't have the bandwidth for doing that. They can't do cattle call stuff. And they're still selling the team leader is still selling 60, 70 houses a year, still trying to manage deals falling apart, still trying to manage the agents that are whining about why they don't have enough closings this month, right? Or where the leads are, and they have to hire this ISA. And so we try to I did it myself, running and building ISA teams within mega real estate companies. And we didn't have the luxury of doing cattle calls. Like, we had to be really efficient. Like, you got to show up. I punch you in the face. If you stay, I make you do the work. If you like the work, you get to stay here until I figure out that you can't actually make dollars happen. And then you have to leave, right? That's got to be efficient.
Gotcha. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, realtors and brokers of all ages and sizes, we really appreciate you tuning into the podcast today. As always, at the end of the show, I'm going to ask that if you enjoyed what we shared, if you enjoyed Dale and the information that he's sharing with you, and you should, if you have an ISA, because I'm finding this stuff to be gold, and I can't recollect us ever doing a show where we've been talking about this specific topic. I'm going to say, please thumbs up our podcast on the iTunes station. Thanks to the listeners like you, we are quickly becoming the #1 podcast that talks about real estate marketing. And boy, John and I really do appreciate you hanging in there with our craziness. John, if somebody wanted to find you, how would you like them to do so?
It's really easy. Just go to the Mel Wright website, mel-wright.com, and you can book a chat with me and my partner, Adam, who's much nicer than me. But I think I'm quite chatty, aren't I, Robert?
And, chatty, yes.
Even if you don't if you don't think you're ready for the Mel Wright platform, I'm sure we can provide some value in the conversation to help you in your real estate career.
And Dale, how would you like our audience to look you up?
Sure. We're all over the internet. They can hit me up personally, Dale at smartinsidesales.com, or they can go to our website, check out our training options that we have. We also do have a YouTube channel that has tons of recorded content. I do a podcast called Cash Call, and we publish the replays in there with my co-host, Brian Curtis, where we're reviewing calls. And really we're, as my friend Sam Monreal used to say, elbow deep in the dough of lead conversion.
Beautiful. And ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to look me up, I'm an SEO guy these days. I'm long out of the call center, call conversion, call business, but you can still get on a call with me in some rare cases. You can look me up at inboundrem.com and fill out one of my contact forms if for some reason you're looking to talk about inbound, which is something else entirely different. Stay tuned. We're going to do another 10 minutes with Dale. We're going to keep talking about this subject, which is getting better results from your ISAs. And we're going to do that on our YouTube channel, which is Mel-Wright on YouTube. So look forward to seeing you there. 3, 2, 1. All right, for those of you triathletes of the podcasting world who have stayed with us, we are now have moved you over into our video channel, and we're super excited that you're staying with us today. Now you're seeing our ugly mugs and
see
my overly long beard and Dale's super cool hair, and John.
It's very impressive hair. I got a bit there. It's very impressive.
Oh, stop. Keep going.
It's just envy. It's just envy, Dale. It's just envy, you know.
Now, before I kick off, because I can, John, but usually at the end of the show, you have one last question that you like to ask. So I'm giving you the chance to
I've got a good
ask.
one, I think. Actually, I think I know it's a surprise.
Like I've been doing this with you for 2 years and a couple hundred episodes. Go ahead, hit them.
Yeah. It's an observation as we had this discussion. It seemed very masculine, cattle farms, you know, smack them in the arse, where the majority of real estate agents are females. Is there, I know we're talking about people that get the initial bookings, but then you like training the actual real estate agent. Is there, the way you approach it, your language, the style, is it very different when you're dealing with very female orientated offices that are dominated by females than male? Can you give some thoughts about it, some insights?
Sure. In this interview, I'm being loud, I'm being funny, like I'm making analogies and things like that. I'm doing that on purpose because I enjoy doing it. But when it comes to the training or the actual concepts that we teach, one of the key principles that we teach people is make the lead right no matter what, right? In order to make the lead right no matter what, you can't use old school objection handling or scripting or any of that kind of, you can't use the 1950s vacuum salesman who sits on your couch and won't leave until your stay-at-home wife buys something, right? Sorry, my dog's freaking out. It just doesn't work that way. So what I would say, hold on, can I get the dog? I'm so sorry.
Of course you can, Dale. We're on bonus content.
All right, hold on one second.
Oh, he just hit the postman. Did you know, listeners and viewers, I used to have a dog, a beast, in the UK for 13 years. He was a Newfoundland Labrador, 130 pounds, listeners and viewers.
That is a heck of a dog. I've got a 60-pound Labradoodle that cohabitates my space with me, and he is a monster to handle.
This was truly a beast, truly a beast of a dog. There we
Sorry
go.
about that, guys. The dog is just out. There's the front door. Kid came to the front door. Dog freaks out, and I ruined your podcast. I'm so sorry.
No, it's always bonus content.
There's no such thing. We ruin it just fine on our own.
So you were delving my question about how you approach when it's a female heavy office, how the style that you approach this might be a bit different.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's actually not different. What I'm saying is that the techniques that we teach people to be in line with the lead that they're speaking to, not in opposition to them, wherever possible. And so, in fact, it really works quite well with females who typically aren't accustomed to being confrontational or in opposition to them. So the type of things that we teach, which is essentially we're saying, get on the same side of the table with the lead, understand the lead from their perspective, because I'm going to tell people the secret here really is that almost every objection that you run into where it sounds like somebody's telling you no, what they're actually doing is they're saying yes to something else. They're saying yes to a different set of circumstances, yes to different timing, yes to a different person. And so really, you just need to listen to them and understand and ask good questions. So whether you're male or female, everybody can be taught to ask really good questions.
I think that was a fantastic answer, and I totally agree. I for a long while, didn't listen to what the prospect was saying to me. I just wanted to sell it, given what I had to offer, because it's what they were meant to do. It would really help them, but they wanted other things, but I just wasn't prepared to listen to it, Dale. Over to you, Robert.
Well, I think that my impression is anybody at all ever who's going to teach. So there's a thing that is, making comfortable, and Dale is doing a phenomenal job of matching the spirit of the show that he's on. He's looking at the two people running it, and he's kind of matching his attitudes and behaviors to those two people, which is a sign of somebody who's done a lot of telesales work, to be honest with you, and a lot of sales work, because you want people to feel like they can relate to you. So if you're talking to, let's say, two university professors who fall on the conservative side, who talk in a very clinical way, you probably aren't going to bust out with the dad jokes, most likely not. You're going to stick with the more statistical, marketing, straightforward, elements of your offer. The same thing I think would be true, John, of talking to a principally female team. You're going to talk to them about playing to their strengths and talking about the things that they relate to, whatever that is, because gender doesn't really play much into that
Can
anymore.
I ask Dale another question? I've got another thing.
No, you're not allowed. Of course you can. Go for it, man. It's your show.
No, but I don't know. Obviously, we've got to be respectful of Dale's time and yours. So I don't know if you've got a crucial question, but it's slightly outside our conversation, but totally linked to real estate. I sense that the kind of large regional franchise offices that have like 300 agents, a lot of them part-time, plus the large regional independent offices in Northern Nevada, we're dominated by 3 to 4 of those. That some of them have got 400 or 500 agents on their books, but most of them are part-timers. And don't get the impression that I'm anti-part-time. It's just a certain type of part-time. I think in the new world that's obviously coming, I think they're going to have a rough time, Dale. But I call it the more boutique solutions that most of your client base. I actually, even though we've got Redfins, big competitors growing, I actually think there's a good future for the smaller boutique agency brokers or power groups. What's your thoughts about that statement, Dale?
Yeah, I think that what we're going to see is that large teams, well-trained organized, structured, and accountable teams are going to are going to just take over the brokerage world. If you look at it this way, look at Zillow Flex, for instance. What is Zillow doing? Zillow essentially is went from a lead provider to a brokerage model where it was, hey, we'll do this work and pay for this stuff up front. We're going to send you this stuff. Hopefully you're going to convert it and we trust that you can. To then they figured out you're a bunch of idiots and you don't answer your phones. We're essentially going to make you a big Zillow team. We're going to be a Zillow team now. We're going to control what you do. We're going to control what you say. We're going to control how you contact these people and follow up with them. They're making a team. They're making a big team is what they're doing, right? That's what they're doing because they figured out we have to control more of the supply chain or more of the process chain here in order to continue to grow, continue to take market share, and continue with to have a high level of customer service and produce revenue. So the brokerage model of throw a bunch of people at the wall, whoever sticks is great, and who doesn't, they don't matter, is going away because of commission compression and costs and everything else, where what's really eating up the market share, what is generating the dollars to be able to become the 800-pound gorilla marketers are the ones who have the highly structured teams where they control more of the process, and they don't just have a bunch of dead wood agents on their rosters. That's my opinion. That's what I see.
Thank you.
I agree with what Dale said. And on that note, I think that we've hit our goalpost of 10 extra minutes here on video. Dale, I want to thank you. It's been, for me, like going back home to be able to talk about some of these topics of conversation out of sheer, I don't know, like, I spent 20 years getting good at this stuff, and then the digital revolution happened. And it's not so much it changed, you still use it. It's just, it's a very different thing where everybody's making their introductions digitally and you have the conversation on the back end. Whereas back in the day, I used to make my introduction via the phone, first voice, first contact, and then warm them up and do everything from start to finish. These days, getting people on the phone without some kind of permission to do so is very difficult. It's not possible, it's just difficult.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. John, I don't have anything else.
No, we're going to wrap it up now, listeners and viewers. We'll be back next week with another great guest. Hopefully she's going to turn up. She's had to cancel a couple of times, but hopefully next week she's actually going to appear. Bless her heart. And we'll see you next week, folks, for another hopefully great interview. See you soon. Bye.
All right. Goodbye.